Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Get ready to find your free will from your roots in the stars.
Hello, this is Sue Rose Minahan, Talk Cosmos, November 30th in the month of Sagittarius, and we have a repeat program on Thursday at 6 to 7 a.m. That's Pacific time, standard time. Yes, and that's so our topic today is about Jupiter, the great gassy planet, the largest in our solar system that takes a year to orbit the sun, and it's just passing the very last degree of Sagittarius, where it's been for the entire year. And December 2nd, it'll go into Capricorn. Tonight's guest has spoken before back in July. Lesley Francis, a wonderful special astrologer from Canada, Calgary in Alberta, Canada. She's many things. She's I want to say a humorist. She is a humorist and a greatly adored one. Although officially she's really a professional astrologer and an intuitive. She's doing an ongoing series of webinars with Samuel Reynolds. There's one tomorrow. We'll announce it later. And she also has many other capacities in the past, such as, she consults and does lectures internationally and nationally. She was a former journalist and a media relations consultant. I mean, many wonderful faculties, besides creating an oracle star cards with meditation that she coaches. So it's going to be quite extraordinary. Oh, and I forgot to mention the primary thing. Lesley Francis is also the author of this year's Llewellyn Sun Sign book for 2019 and for this coming one, 2020. And in fact, you'll note, keep tuned, because at the half hour we're going to mention how you can, if you sign up for her class, she's giving away books. So it's going to be a good deal. But tonight's really a pleasure. Hi, Lesley.
Hi, Sue. And just one small correction.
Yes.
I live in Edmonton.
Oh, well, there is a difference. It's like Portland and Seattle. You know, when one is like a foreigner, such as I am.
Well, and of course, people from Calgary don't like to think about Edmonton, and vice versa. We have huge sports rivalries between our two cities, even though we're in the same province.
Well, I will make that correction. And, yes, I've always thought of the mountain range that's so beautifully in that area. So if I were to do that, I'd get that space and time reality check. Which isn't that true, though? When you think like that, brings me right back to our subject of Jupiter and Capricorn, because time is essentially one of the main features of Capricorn. So besides getting too expansive with all these, which Jupiter is wonderful at, our belief systems and going beyond, it does relate back to time. So time and distance.
Well, yeah, Jupiter is the planet that's connected to long distance travel, and it makes you wonder these days in the world that we live in, is long distance travel now become travel into the cosmos as opposed to travel on the planet, since everything seems so profoundly and easily connected.
I like that, because often we think, what is the frontier? And it has been mentioned, it's interior, which of course it is within oneself, and then under the sea, which I believe also, however, there's so much pollution and whatnot, but the stars, and it's not just the universe, it's really that consciousness, isn't it? That beyond.
Indeed.
Much food for thought there. It's really wonderful. You know, coming over to the studio, I had the radio on, and it was Hawaiian music, which here, as it's getting kind of cold, was quite a pleasure. And these people were from Maui and playing traditional music and jamming, and there's slide guitar, steel guitar, which is very big. Slide guitar, they call it in Hawaii. It's very big. But the comment and the conversation related to Capricorn, I thought, because they were talking about how music is so intergenerational. You know, that because they were jamming and that kind of thought. And that, so I'm trying to relate how we were exactly talking about, expanding.
Well,
Yes.
there's Jupiter for you. Let's wander off down that road. There must be something there.
It is, yeah. But I thought intergenerational. And because I think with going into Capricorn, it's really the past, but yet we're going towards the future when we start talking about these cycles. And we can get so disengaged and separated that somehow anything that is intergenerational, which is the traditions, of music, it seemed appropriate.
Well, I do think it's appropriate because the reality is that you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right? There are things which do stand the test of time. And for me, Jupiter in Capricorn is really about taking time to sufficiently ground your beliefs, your ideals, your thoughts into something that you can apply in your everyday life. I mean, it's one thing to believe something, it's another thing to live it.
Absolutely.
And of course, the Jupiter in an earth sign, and most particularly in Capricorn, is very much about that. And this of course is not your average everyday Jupiter going through Capricorn phase, because it does so once every 12 years. It's going to add another flavor to the upcoming. First of all, we're having a solar eclipse on, well, depending on where you live. If you live on the West Coast, it will be on Christmas Day in the evening at about 9:15 or something like that. Or if you live in other parts of the world, it could be on December the 26th. But either way, so Jupiter fares very strongly in that eclipse. And I know later this month you'll be talking about that. For me, Jupiter moving into Capricorn is kicking off, is shifting some energy towards that big couple of events that we have in early January. So we're getting a taste of what it means to, in other words, don't say you think or believe something, act accordingly and be accountable. Because Capricorn for me is always about be accountable.
That's an excellent word. It is true. And serious, as you said. It's a measured approach to growth and wants to be grounded, wants reality, practicality. Yes,
Well, no matter how far your consciousness expands, we still live in the third dimension, and so time and space are absolutely relevant.
Well, yes. These cycles, I'm thinking, like I noted, and for the audience, because it's really potent. This is a complex subject, actually, Jupiter going into Capricorn, because of the fact that there's all these other planets that are aligned already there and have been. Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, and Pluto. Now, and Pluto is a transformational of regeneration, many capacities. And I'm just saying this for our non-astrologers, or just to identify what we're talking about, yeah. Exact. And and besides the fact that we have the past, which was represented by the two nodes, the south is in Capricorn. So in one way, we're releasing that which doesn't work, and of course, Pluto's in there helping with that. But with right, and so.
Well, I think Jupiter, I think Saturn's, I don't know how much fun Saturn's actually going to be having. No, because he's going to be sitting between Pluto and Jupiter. And now, of course, it's for Jupiter, when it first moves into Capricorn, it's not unlike taking a cold shower.
Well, from the heights, yes, it's just been pointing to the galactic center. Forgot, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, we're here on Earth.
Yeah, thud, you're back.
Yeah, and
you hit the ground, and are you still running? No,
yeah,
I'm kidding.
No, that's right. And as you had pointed out, there's some big appointments leading up, and so it's hard not to jump to it. I mean, it's like the eclipse on Christmas or the next day is a strong influencing factor. And then on January 12th, which we astrologers have been hearing others talk about for such a long time, because there's this tremendous stellium that's Stellium for those folks, because even the computer doesn't know the word, it seems. But, it is shocking. It's like, no, it's stellium. I know. But it's all in Capricorn and very closely aligned to, at that point, at 22 degrees, I think, Capricorn.
Yes.
So anything cardinal, of course, is going to be in people's charts or...
Well, it's interesting because we also, on January the 10th, have a lunar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer.
Oh, that's right.
So, I wish I could say put your seatbelt on, but I'm not so sure that's because all this energy is building and has been building for quite some time, and actually has been building probably since about 2016. And we are now just moving into, what you might call a watershed moment. I think of it as a point of initiation, which I will be talking about in my webinar tomorrow. But it's a point of initiation where we have the opportunity, and Jupiter will play a tremendous role in this. We have an opportunity to initiate new structures. And Jupiter in Capricorn does have that capacity, if it understands using what is practically available to build something based on what you, on what guides you, on what is meaningful to you.
That's really how they do operate. You expressed that beautifully, because Saturn wants to put form to what Jupiter risks and looks out at, and together it's a good teamwork. And in fact, there is that every 20 year, which is coming up at the end of next year, I think December 21st. Yes. Yeah, where they will
one
be
of the other, yeah, in Aquarius.
Exactly.
My favorite sign.
Yes, I like it too.
Well, it's my sun's sign. If it wasn't my favorite sign, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah, well, I knew this right. So we've tossed out these pointers, and this idea of the opportunity for new structure. It's, in fact, I also was looking at another date, and that's when the sun conjuncts Jupiter in Saturn, and that'll be just, not in Saturn, but in Capricorn, and that's just on the 27th, 2 days, a couple of days after Christmas, or the 28th if you're overseas. And at that point, looking at the chart, was that Mercury will be at 27, will be at the galactic center, 27 degrees Sagittarius.
Well, and of course, what we're trying to do is talk about the big picture, and the big picture often seems really big, right?
Yeah.
And the other facet of Jupiter I wanted to mention before I forget is it really is about truth telling.
that's a stopper. Yes, the truth. that
So, yeah, so uh, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting time, and we see so much going on in the world today where old patterns of behavior are no longer acceptable. Just a quick mention, of course, in Canada, hockey is a religion, and in the last week or two, there's been essentially a huge hue and cry uh, about coaches being abusive to hockey players. In fact, one of them was just forced to resign yesterday, partly for a variety of bad behavior, which, even 30, 40 years ago would have been considered acceptable. So we are in a phase of really looking at what does it mean to be in authority, right?
yes,
Are you authoritative or authoritarian?
big difference.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and Jupiter moving into Capricorn, I think has something to do with that, really, in the sense um, of getting to the truth of the structures that we've created and having a look at, are do they still function? Are they still meaningful? Do we find, and of course with Pluto there too, do we find some new and different ways to create the world um, based on maybe a different set of priorities? And God knows, I'm not sure that I can really begin to project what I think those priorities might look like. So,
Values, but priorities adds to that whole list because we went through so much with Venus, it seems, and values, but it interconnected because karma and ethics, when you talk about accountability in Capricorn, is really, well, I don't want to say the name of the game, but maybe I do want to say that because it's really a big focus. And so, yes, how we when we consider like the hockey and as an example, and our behavior, which indicates what we find acceptable, because we are social people. I mean, people are, and we have ideas.
well, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because we're looking at what. Sorry, I just banged my mic.
That's okay.
We're really in the last 20 years really begun to focus on what is abuse, like in a broader sense than just this kind of abuse or that kind of abuse, but what constitutes abuse, what constitutes fair treatment of your fellow human being.
I hadn't thought of that.
And because you're in a position of authority, does that give you the right to do whatever you want to do because somebody anointed you to whatever? I use the word anoint somewhat facetiously, but it's just a really interesting time, and I really think that anyone who thinks they know exactly what's going to happen,
Oh, it's very, yes.
yeah, perhaps we'll have a conversation, Sue, once we get to the end of January and find out if all our hair has fallen out or
Yeah,
something.
I would like this. Well, Aquarius, I think that would be an excellent time. Let's do this. Yeah, because, yeah, as they call it, well, no, I'm looking at that. I don't want, okay, talking about Capricorn, part of that also is the parental energy. It's on the focus of the axis of the 10th house in natural rulership at the MC, as we call it, and the angles, and it's the parental authority, which we've brought up. And so for ourselves and for mastery, in order to be in a capacity of some giving rules and understanding and etc. But what I'm getting at is that this parental idea, which is the external versus the internal, like we were talking about, where's the real frontier? And you know, the consciousness that also finally goes inside to the interior. But I was reading some notes I'd read when I read James Hill's, actually it's James Hill's Soul Code, his book. And
James Hillman, you mean?
Hillman, that's it. Thank you. Yes. And I don't know if anyway, I plowed through that book one time, but the most pertinent area I thought was when he talked about current society clinging to the idea of parental importance versus, and I'm taking this from a note, cosmological power. That because it used to be that the parental forces were more endowed with the cosmology of the source, whether we called it Mother Nature.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so the problem with looking at our parents as the all encompassing authority people, that is why we have our natures, because of them, is that we're separated from nature because the world, or our environment, the world around us, can show us through its just energies, whether it's animals or whether it's society or whether it's nature itself, of these of ways of realizing, or ways that we get parented, in other words, and we resist that if we do it. So I'm wondering with
Well,
mhm.
well, I was just going to say, I have a friend who, when she was growing up, the thing that informed her reality more than anything was her relationship with animals and trees
Exactly.
and nature. That's where she found her peace, her harmony, her sustenance. It wasn't in her relationship with her parents.
Well, Plato, I don't know if it was during Plato or Socrates, but back in the golden age of Greece, which was like
A
4,000
long
years
time
ago.
ago.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. But they felt that 70% of any environment was to be left natural so that we could have this relationship. And really, that's the same relationship. Well, it is the same relationship as our body mass versus water, fluid, or earth versus, earth versus water. So that makes sense that I think there's many people that respond with nature. I do. I love the
Well,
trees.
yeah, me too.
I mean, I really learned that the changes of nature after a while, if nothing else, spring comes up, right? I mean, just to be simple here. It doesn't all end, but many more things, yes.
Well, and of course, humans do have some difficulty believing that they cannot master and control everything. That you do need to have, it needs to be a collaboration. And, this is not a well-known fact, but of course, I live in the province that has the dreaded oil sands in it. And of the there are a number of developments up in Fort McMurray, and almost every single development brought in the native elders to bless the land and to make peace with the land before the oil sands construction was begun. All of them but one. And this particular, and I don't remember the name of the company that was doing it, and they had someone advise them that they needed to do this, and they chose to ignore that advice. And it's interesting what happened. They had a fire, an explosion, and something else. I forget what it was, because they had not had the elders come in and bless the land. They'd not made peace with the land and asked for the land's cooperation.
It's this kind of energy, really, that one has to beg to wonder, with all this tremendous emphasis of Capricorn, with Jupiter coming in with its viewpoint, which is having a viewpoint and voicing that viewpoint, which is important. But and of the higher realms, of the skies, as we were talking about, the consciousness, and really how, as you had mentioned the word priorities, how we will begin to refocus. And if we can really integrate this concept of, because it's also the South Node, we have to let go of what doesn't work. I just hope we do.
Well, that's where the karmic, the past comes into play, the karmic debt, if you will. And I don't see karma as necessarily cause and effect. I don't think it works quite as straight in a straight line as much as we would like to think it does. However, I don't know about, all I know is my own personal experience right now is that I find myself revisiting my past, a lot of the facets of my life, trying to release things, heal things, so that I have a fertile ground on which to move forward, because Capricorn is about structure. And what's the most important structure that we stand on? It's the earth.
Yes, and I think you've tied the very beginning of this chat that we've had so well, because it is really a matter of opportunity, of finding out the new structures. We're just going to take a brief break. This is Talk Cosmos on November 30th or December 5th, and I'm speaking with Lesley Francis from Edmonton, Canada, and we're talking about Jupiter and Capricorn. So we'll be right back.
Do you have a question or something to contribute for today's Talk Cosmos program? If you're listening to the live show on Saturday, the phone lines are now open until 6:45 Pacific. Give us a call at 888-298-5569 to either join us on the air or we can write it down for you. Once again, that's 888-298-5569.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Sagittarius, ruled by the largest of all planets, Jupiter, the Roman god, or Zeus by the ancient Greeks. By leaving a cycle based on power and powerlessness, of life and death and regeneration, involving committed relationships, Sagittarius energy finds meaning for an expanded perspective and potential for actualization in their search for truth. As a mutable fire sign depicted by the centaur, Sagittarius is adventurous and seeks the beyond. Sagittarius travels to far places, physically and mentally, to find the truths of life.
Hi, this is Petra Touchert of Petra Touchert Astrology, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we discuss the meaningfulness of our roots in the stars.
No other station delivers this much variety. Alternative Talk 1150.
Well, goody, here we are back again, and this is November 30th and December 5th, Talk Cosmos, Sagittarius with Jupiter, that is going to, on the 2nd of December, go into Capricorn for a year until the 19th of December 2020. And it is a packed year with a lot of events. We're just trying to put, like Lesley said, a focus on this big subject. And so I'm going to ask you, Lesley, about the karma debt. I think that's a fascinating subject because it relates with Capricorn, and as you say, it's not linear. It's more of a what's the other word? Quantum thing, where it just yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for that lovely announcement about the webinar I'm doing tomorrow with Sam Reynolds, and just for anybody who's listening, I still have 3 books I'd be happy to give away. So all you need to do is, I know the announcement the little ad had all the information in it, so just carry on. Just carry on.
It will be special. Those lucky 3s, It's three's a charm, so yay.
So, now what? So what's the
Oh,
question
yes,
that you
about
just?
karma debt.
Oh, the karmic debt. Well, of course we know that you know Capricorn is very much about what your obligations are and what you owe, right? And in this case, with the planets that are in play and the eclipses, because first of all, let's talk about the nodal axis, which has been in Cancer Capricorn, and we need to look at any outdated structures that we have in our lives, outworn. I don't, I'm not, and of course, sometimes when Pluto's involved, people think that you got to destroy everything. And here's where the energy of Capricorn says, now just wait a second, transform what needs to be transformed, but leave what is valuable as your foundation going forward. So part of this process is looking at the structures that we have created and what kind of karmic debt have we created by adhering to structures which are toxic, because Pluto always comes along and asks us to get rid of whatever is toxic. Yeah. And authority for the sake of authority is not healthy. Maintaining the status quo just cause is also not healthy, and it's not even healthy for the people who want to maintain the status quo, because nature shows us that what is no longer viable does need to die. Trees will show you that, plants, and we have difficulty with the idea that you cannot grow something new if you're not prepared to let go of what is old. That your energy is all caught up in maintaining something that is no longer healthy or functioning.
You need the space. Yeah. Release.
So yeah. So you need to. So where is it's interesting because we're talking about Cancer Capricorn. There's a lot of emotion attached to this, and Pluto as well. So if people are finding they've got a lot of emotional stuff surfacing, it's time, and you're being given a very strong indication that your body's been carrying this. And all the research recently shows that every emotional experience you've had in your life that was significant to you is stored somewhere in in the cells of your body. And so in order to create the space for new growth for yourself emotionally and physically and spiritually and intellectually, you need to let this process, as difficult as it might be to you, and I do speak, it is challenging when you find yourself feeling things that you thought you were done with. And that is, to my mind, part of this karmic debt that we're talking about. We can get so focused on one aspect of the elemental structure of the world. In other words, let's just focus on the earth stuff, the practical stuff, and forget that everything is intertwined. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yes, it does. Very much so, very much so, because it is all strongly related, and letting go and renewing. In fact, that brings me back to that music that I first brought up, because really it's like having other tools to release, the fact of that particular listening to the Hawaiian music, such as I did. And in that conversation, this man was playing some country music, and somebody was saying, no, it sounds like more Hawaiian. And the point was, he illustrated the difference in the beat. And I know you would know this because you were a judge of music awards up there, in
it's music, yeah.
Yeah. So the point was, and I listened, it was fascinating, because when you listen to country music, it's more like you're riding a horse. You know, like if you ride a horse, yeah, it's like da-dun, da-dun, you know, it's got that steady rhythm of whether you're galloping or trotting or whatever. And of course, that's Western riding horses versus English, but still it's that. Whereas in Hawaii, it's the ocean. It sweeps in, and it's not talking about tsunamis, which they rarely rarely have. Right.
Well,
But it is
well, right
gentle.
now,
Yeah.
well, I was going to say right now we might be feeling emotionally like we're riding a tsunami.
Well, it could be, yeah, in this energy focus. So I thought, really the music was showing us how the environment, we're just living part of the environment. And it was another system. And I was thinking, because the world used to have music, everybody had a piano, and they don't. So I know music doesn't particularly relate to Capricorn, but it does involve emotion. And as we were talking, and it does involve like the...
Well, no. But if there was no structure, I mean, Saturn
That's true.
rules the structure of all things.
Yeah. So it could be a good healing focus.
Well, and it's funny because it reminds me of a lecture that Frank Clifford did at Norwalk, in which he talked about an important role Saturn plays in humor.
Oh.
Well, and of course I brought that up, and I don't remember exactly what he said. I just know that it resonated for me that because you have to have a structure. Again,
boundaries. Excuse me, I was just thinking, isn't that part of it? Because so often we think there's, and we hadn't brought that up, but Capricorn is all about boundaries, structure, authority, rules. It's how do you...
Well, could we get rid of the rules? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Little Aquarian thinking that'll be later, at the end of December next year.
No, it's just that sometimes there are a lot of rules that have no other purpose except to control people. There's a different... So, see, for me, a well-functioning Saturn understands boundaries, and also understands that guidance is as important as telling people what to do.
And socially, that's how people interact. I mean, it's a necessity, and I absolutely, I have great respect. I mean, absolutely. But again, it's like going to prison terms. The purpose, it seems to me, I wish we would think, is that, and maybe this would be a Jupiterian in Capricorn concept, is to realize that prison is a reformation. It's not just punishment. It's not supposed to be retribution. It's supposed to be, in my mind, so that it rehabilitates a person to be able to function again. Maybe they missed that, or who knows what happened. But, I mean...
Well, I think that consequence is important, but consequence is not the same as punishment.
Exactly. And that gets to karma, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the negative aspect of Capricorn is control, fear, and punishment. It doesn't really, punishing people. I think if we could find a different way to look at it, I'm not suggesting we abolish the prison system at all, but we do need to teach people that it's the consequences of your actions, and if you choose to do such and such, this is what's going to happen to you.
Perhaps.
And I have to tell you, when I was a journalist, I once did a story. They just started having conjugal rights for inmates at this maximum security prison in Agassiz, BC, and I went out to interview a guy who'd been convicted of murder, and the woman he'd married, and to write a story about conjugal visits. And when I got to the prison, if it wasn't for the uniforms, I wouldn't have energetically been able to tell the difference between the guards and the prisoners.
gee.
because they were carrying the same kind of energy.
Well, everybody would be feeling some restriction, I would imagine, just from the environment. Yeah.
Well, and but so then, then it's kind of interesting. We're talking about karmic debt because I think that one of the aspects of karmic debt that we need to look at is how well does the world function if we believe that power over is a good thing?
That really gets to the cardinal cross, doesn't it? And when we say cross, it's like the four angles,
Yep.
in astrology, because there's with Aries and Libra, which are cardinal, they are of the equality, or me and self we're the light. At that moment of the equinox, the light was equal. That concept that instead of being a authoritative or child-parent relationship, that it's more of equal terms.
Well, really, raising children ought to be a collaboration.
I hope so, yes.
Well, I know, but I'm sure you and I were both born in the generation in which your parents were the authority and you were,
Oh, I see. I thought you meant between the parents, but between the parents and the child.
Yes, it should be a collaboration because just because you're 4 foot nothing doesn't mean you're stupid. It's
seems like, yes. Well,
and there's obviously, and it's funny because lots of people believe these days that the pendulum has swung too far, and now the kids have all the power, and the parents spend all their time trying to make sure the kid's okay with what's happening. Well, that doesn't teach you how to deal with the world either.
Well,
so teaching people that, acting like you're the authority and in your children's lives and they have nothing to say is no better than the children being the authority and the parents have nothing to say. We're still stuck in that dynamic of power over. And this is, I think, one of the things that's part of the Saturn-Pluto thing. And we're seeing it around the world as people try to make their world smaller again and have more control. And so they're swinging more towards, giving all their power to some person who apparently is king for a day or a month or a year. We're swinging back to wanting someone else to be in charge, so we don't have to be accountable.
Then this all begins to spiral back beautifully to various thoughts. One is, it gets back to that, okay, Jupiter, just the concept of Jupiter, which of course rules Sagittarius normally, but it is going into Capricorn, and it wants to have that higher, well, it's higher education, it's your visions, it's your belief structures, it's religion, philosophy, it's all of this greater cultural also significance. And what I'm getting at is that in thinking about the authority, which would, how can they work together for our greater good? And it's really because Jupiter wants to reach the spiritual, and that connection, it's not just material, of course. And Capricorn, with Saturn, is man-made law, but it's also universal law, if I'm correct. And so what I'm getting at is, wouldn't it be grand if we could just really open up the hemispheres, the visions above, to let us realize that this horizon is within, and to bring in that consciousness of our connection with spirit, and that experience of it, not just, like you say, parroting something, but really living it and learning the depth of it. Because whether it was in prison or not, that's half the problem. That is the big problem, is people, some of the training there could be Oh, in my ideal world, where we'll keep growing this world, where people learn that they have this, that the authority is inside with this link to their spirituality.
Well, I think that Jupiter and Capricorn can be a lot about, loosing the bonds that bind you to things, whether it actually reflects anything that you believe, because Jupiter is about freedom. I always say that there are 3 signs in the zodiac for whom freedom is a way of life, not a concept, and that's Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Aries. So when Jupiter, which is very much connected to the need for space, for the freedom to move, the freedom to think, the freedom to believe, moves into Capricorn, it is going to come up against whatever is the commonly accepted way of viewing the world. And it's always its job when it goes through Capricorn is to help us loosen up a bit and not be so attached. And yet, on the other hand, the negative side of it is I'm right and you're wrong, and right, because Jupiter can be quite self-righteous.
Well, that's true, and we have experienced a good deal of that. But that's true. There will be some of that energy, of course, because they'll have the law on their side and et cetera. But then again, it's going to be, hey, is that the real law? I mean, is that really have purpose? Is there purpose?
Well, and it's funny because we discover as humans that it's not always easy to you can't legislate people's behavior. All you can do is legislate whatever consequences you think are important once you've decided what your society needs to value and stand for.
Yeah. Maybe we should look at that. We have a few minutes. Maybe we should look at the eclipse coming up. We've mentioned that because I was looking at some energetic feedback out there, how it could be effective.
Well, I found it really interesting because as I mentioned to you before, during the break, I did the chart for Christmas Day.
Yes.
And the day starts out with the moon void of course in Sagittarius.
Oh, well, though, I was just reading that who was it? A great astrologer, maybe it was Jung. Oh, boy, I got to remember. No, it was Ruger. Dane, Dane Ruger said that he didn't think that Sagittarius was void of course at the end, and it's because of the galactic center. It's so potent.
Well, I know, but I think that, well, whatever. I don't remember all the degrees, so I was just looking at it from that point of view. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay. And it passing over the galactic center isn't necessarily going to be helpful for cooking turkey.
Oh.
You might be having a beautiful, universal experience while you think, oh, I was supposed to put the turkey in the oven. And then it moves into Capricorn. Early afternoon, and so it's quite an interesting movement of energy that day from the fanciful to the practical to now I don't think it's a total solar eclipse, and it is a new moon, so it's going to be, and of course the energy of the new moon is very instinctive and intuitive. It's not very Capricornian.
Oh.
Well, so and this happens at the end of the day. So and of course it is conjunct Jupiter.
It is, yes.
So again, it should be a very, and in many respects, a much more Jupiterian. They always have to laugh because the month before Christmas, when the sun is in Sag, everybody's out
yes,
being generous and kind, jolly, and doing all those, and jolly and all that stuff, and then we have the solstice, and like 3 days before Christmas everybody goes, oh my God, how much money did I spend?
Yeah, it gets serious. It is a serious.
and then Christmas Day, it's like, uh, it- you know, it's always interesting to me that I think the Romans had a different idea of Capricorn than with Saturnalia. They saw it as a celebration.
Well, they needed to. Yes, that Saturn, Saturneria, I think is how it is. But it was the celebration of light. But everything went. Anything and everything went. I guess they just threw the shackles off of their
Yep.
party out.
Celebrated the light returning.
Yes.
And so what do? We celebrate the birth of someone who was a martyr.
Yeah, but if there's many talks about how it goes back about how so many, well, this gets into areas of people's beliefs and that, but yeah, but
Well, we could just back away from that.
no, but there are ancients of exactly that because of the sun, it holds in space there for 3 days. And really, when you're living out in nature, which of course the people of the ancients were and still people do, and who knows where we may go with all our, how everything goes. But the point is that you're so cognizant of that it gets dark, and the light is gone. And so...
well, where I live?
Oh, boy.
On the solstice, the winter solstice.
Yes, on the 21st.
We might have 8 hours of sunshine.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Well, we don't have you're further up quite a bit, but even in Seattle, it's hard to know, but it gets dark by 4, and then it doesn't get light until 8, I think. So that's not too many more hours either. I think it's about 8 hours also.
Yeah.
It's just plain dark.
So, this... Yeah, and the darkness, is a really powerful time.
Yes, so
and we like to avoid it as much as we possibly can.
I am going to just bring a little mention that next week, and that will be the 7th. Yes, December 7th. Ursula Stockter from Mexico City will be speaking with me, and we're going to talk about the lunar goddesses, the triform, Hecate and Diana, and so that whole conversation will be most powerful. And
awesome.
Yeah. And so tonight is with Lesley Francis of Edmonton, Canada, and we're talking of this event that really is going to be ongoing with Jupiter, the great king of the sky, meeting up with the great gas giant. And she has a webinar you might have remembered, but it will be tomorrow, and you can go to Talk Cosmos. You can find the details. And if you go to Lesley Francis, it's also there. It's with Samuel Reynolds, and she's giving away a book, her great sun sign book of Llewellyn for 2020. So there's only a few for the lucky person, so that'll be quite exciting. I know I'm attending. I'm going to listen, so I'm looking forward to this. The two of you it'll be fun. So we have a couple of minutes here, and gee, when it comes to Jupiter in Capricorn of ethics and what traditions, what rules, what priorities, what goals do we want, it's really going to be a momentous year.
Well, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think
no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I keep lingering, looking like, but I like the idea that Jupiter's involved for Christmas. So, hey,
yes.
It'll be a little.
Yay.
That's right. We'll put our party shoes on or take them off.
We have to put them on first before you can take them off.
That's right. Gotta dance, you know? All right. Well, we'll dance to that music that I talked about. Well, and we'll talk again come Aquarius, okay?
Okay, that would be lovely. Thank you so much, Sue.
It's always great, Lesley. And thank you to everybody.
Thank you for listening to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 6 p.m. to continue finding your roots in the stars.